This episode of Power Up is brought to you by Promo Corner's Page Flip. Not going to in-person trade shows this year and still need to get your catalogs out to those distributors? Upload your digital catalog to Promo Corner's Page Flip. Contact sales at promocorner.com.
I'm so thrilled to be here today to talk about how you can own your audience. Are you ready? Hey, listen, when you go on camera, you want your audience to be hanging on to your every word. You want your audience to stick around to the end. But truth be told, there's a lot of competition out there, right? So how can you get people to stick around till the very end to hear your entire message? Well, it's by getting people to invest in you and to care about you. And there is no better way to do that than through the art of storytelling. You know, I have to tell you, back in 1996, I was working at a television station and there was a big blizzard. It was the blizzard of 96. And I had a station issued hat on, kind of like this one. And I also had a station issued jacket, same color, different jacket. And I was told to go out to the shores of the Milford Sound on the shoreline of Connecticut and stay there with the satellite truck and basically do blizzard coverage. And what did that mean? Well, that meant that I basically had to stay out there until the blizzard was over. And they would go to me in the field and it would be, Pat, we're going to ping pong from you back to the other guy in the mountains. Then we're going to ping pong to you back to the other guy in the mountains. And it was going to be like, oh my gosh, how do I entertain people like all those times on television? Because usually it was like live shot, in, out, you're done. Well, I was determined to make something happen that day, and it did. So I was on the shoreline of Connecticut, and I was like, ooh, really bundled up. I had my mittens on, I had the hat on, even though it was a baseball hat, I had a hat on. It said WVIT, and I had the jacket on. The problem was I didn't have the right boots. I had rain boots, and they were bad rain boots that leaked. So what I did was I put some plastic bags on under the boots because I didn't want to get stuck in the blizzard, which, by the way, we were expecting like 3 feet of snow, and have wet, freezing feet. And I was like, no one's going to see it because it's just like waist up, right? It's just waist up. And I'm standing there and I'm going to be like, well, this is what happened. So I'm standing there on the shoreline, right? And they throw it to me and they're like, Pat, how's it going in Milford? I'm like, well, the waves are whipping up on the shoreline and, it's a higher than usual tide and you can't see anybody for miles to come. And, it hasn't really been that. Well, right in that moment, my hat blew off my head. Now I had a choice in that moment. I could have just let that hat blow off my head, or I could have chased after it. And that's exactly what I did. I ran after that hat, and I kept running after that hat, and I was running and running and running after that hat, and I was becoming really, really small in the screen. In fact, smaller than I am right now. And I know my photographer was like, Pat, where did she go? And in my head, I'm thinking, am I going to have a job to go back to? What's going to happen? Am I going to get fired? I just ran away from my live shot. But then, as I was running and running and running and running and running and getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to the hat, I grabbed it. And that was a moment of triumph. And I put that hat on my head and I ran back. I ran back like this to hold it on. And when I finally got back in position, I heard a voice in my ear. And even though I was only 5'1", it was the voice of my news director. And I said, in this moment, I'm going to either be fired, something's going to happen. And he said, Pat, he said, you're a giant. He said, you're a giant. Keep going. Keep going. You're doing a fantastic job. Keep going. That was ridiculous. And they were all cheering for me in the control room. And it was like, it was a moment. And I tell you that story because when you tell stories, it is an opportunity for you to reveal the real you on camera. Not the buttoned up you. Not the perfect you, got to fluff the hair, but the real you. And that is what stories can really do. So I wasn't just telling a story, I was experiencing the story. The viewer was experiencing the story with me. And I just relived that story for you, right? So, how can you own your audience? It's through the art of storytelling. Let's get into it. You got to own who you are by showing who you are, right? You have to show up and show yourself. So, when you are invested in telling a story, guess what happens? The audience invests in you. That's right. I mean, weren't you invested in me as I was running down the Milford Beach, wondering with every step if I was going to be fired or promoted? Storytelling helps to really create emotional connections. That's the beauty of stories, right? People also make buying decisions based on emotion. They don't make buying decisions based on statistics or a presentation or a PowerPoint. You can put that away, right? Because that's just too anonymous. People love stories, it's our human nature. People care about the people who make the processes easier, not the processes themselves, right? So don't just tell us about that process, tell us stories to get us out of the PowerPoint and into storytelling, not selling, but storytelling. So important. You know, stories are absolutely more memorable. You're going to remember what you saw here today. It doesn't happen all the time, right? Stories definitely help to transport us. They help for the audience to help experience things with us. And that's when you get emotionally invested, right? They're inspirational. Good stories can provide inspiration. And they also help us tap into our humanity so people can relate person to person, human to human, right? Not announcer to announcer. I'd say all of those moments before the snowstorm, the blizzard of 96, I was just an announcer showing up on a street corner doing a story. But in that moment, I had a decision to make. I could have just let the hat fly off and just have my composure. But what would the real Pat Laurie have done? The real Pat Laurie would have chased after it. The real Pat Laurie is spontaneous. The real Pat Laurie is kind of silly. So I want you to embrace your silliness. I want you to tap into yourself because you're human, flesh and bones. You've got a lot of stories to tell, right? But we have ingredients. We have ingredients to good stories, and you have to have the ingredients to make the stories, right? You have to have a character. So that was me on the beach, the blizzard of 96 news reporter with my, garb on, standing there, stationed. You have to have a goal. My goal really was I want to deliver a killer live shot. I'm going to be standing there on the beaches of Milford Sound, and I'm going to be going back and forth all day long. What the heck am I going to do to keep people entertained? I did the snowball fight, right? Yeah, I threw snowballs at the lens, did that. And that was fun too. But you can't do the same thing every time, right? Got to mix up your stories. So good stories have goals and challenges. The challenge was to keep people entertained, right? How to keep it engaging. There was conflict there. What's going to happen? What am I going to do? Did I do the wrong thing? There was a decision that had to be made, right? And then there's a resolution. I took a chance and the moment paid off. It was accolades. It was memorable. It was validation. Hey, if I'm standing on the sands of the Milford Beach in a blizzard, why can't I be in the courthouse with a capital murder trial as the lead story? You see how that works? So it was validation. Now, there's another important ingredient when we're making a story. It's all about the details, right? Because the details make the story. Remember the plastic bags that I slipped on inside my cheap boots? Yeah, I do. I had to put those plastic bags on because I couldn't afford to buy real boots. The plastic bag saved me that day, by the way. So details help to bring the story to life and make that experience richer, right? Paint that picture. And stories, the the one thing about stories is that they inject emotion, right? A story without emotion is just a PowerPoint. You got to be emotional. You've got to tap into all your emotions when you tell a story. If you want to have your audience do something, you have to make them feel something. Create empathy, right? Do you think the audience felt my exhilaration? Were they on that journey with me when I was running? I hope so. Well, there's another important ingredient to storytelling when you're doing it on camera or doing it in person or doing it in a Zoom, right? It's the delivery, because how you say it matters. How you say it absolutely matters. How can you make it more memorable and less forgettable? I'll tell you, it's by being animated. It's by using this, your face, right? Your facial expressions say a lot about you. Your volume, the way you say words, your inflection, your pacing. I was running really fast. I was breathing. I was out of breath. And then I landed, I caught the hat, and I had that moment of reflection. Was I going to get fired? You see, so pacing and pausing and changing it up a bit can help to make people pay attention even more, right? It helps move your story along. So provide those moments of reflection for your audience. Very important. Mix it up. Don't just keep the same cadence over and over and over. Now, I have to tell you, you got to use props. How many props did I use today? I had my hat. I had my clapper in the beginning. I had the snowballs. I did the ping pong thing. I had my jacket. I had the gloves, which I can't find right now. You got to use props because props help liven up, right? Props help show your story while you're telling it. And they make it entertaining for the audience, right? Props always make things entertaining for an audience. And it helps people to visualize. I'm trying to bring you back into that story. And I'm trying to do it in a very animated way. And so don't be afraid to use props because they force you to use your body language, right? That's right. You have arms, use them. You have a head, move it. You have eyebrows, lift them up, right? Smile. So force yourself to use your body because it's going to enhance your story. No matter what, it's going to enhance your story. Now, we cannot talk about storytelling without mentioning that you can sort of have a good idea of your story. Please don't memorize. Like, I didn't memorize that story. And every time I rehearsed it in my head, rehearsed it with the loose facts and loose memories, I was ready to improvise. I was ready to be spontaneous. When I practiced, this hat actually landed back there. When I did it for real, it landed right behind me, but I just kind of picked it up and ran the other way anyhow, right? So I was ready to improvise. And that's what you have to do when you tell stories, because your mind might not remember the story exactly every single time. And something might happen in the audience and you might want to react to it right on the fly in that moment. It shows that you're present. Very important, being in the moment, right? So Brandon, the bottom line is that people might not remember your presentation, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And guess what? They will be more inclined to take action if they can really master the skill. If you can master this skill, they will take action. So I'm going to encourage everybody. It's January. This is a great skill to learn how to have. And I'm going to encourage everybody to think about your own story, to think about what sets you apart, to think about what really drives you, right? And how you are making a difference. And think about the stories that are attached to those questions. You can turn your life into a story. And I can't wait to hear it. I'm Pat Laurie, and this is Power Up.